Welcome to episode 436 of Salcedo Paranormal, and tonight I am going to be reviewing Stephen King's novel The Stand. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media and other ways to contact me at the podcast page, and that is salcidoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. Thank you all for listening, whether you are here for the live podcast streams on Discord or if you listen on the podcast or YouTube feeds, or if you listen on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. KUAP Digital Broadcasting. There you can find two episodes of the show, replays every night. That's 2 episodes at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And that is right before Troubled Minds Radio comes on. As always, I want to thank Michael Strange, host of Troubled Minds Radio, and Liam Martin, host of the Exiled Minds podcast, for producing my shows and putting them up on the station. If you want to support the show, there are some different ways to do that. You can always share the show with others, rate and review it on your podcast platform of choice. Also, you can check out some of the books I've written, paranormal fiction and nonfiction, over on Amazon. I have a Patreon page that there will be exclusive content there starting next month in August this year. 1 episode per month of true paranormal stories from the web. So you can check that out. That episode each month will be available to all tiers on that page, so it doesn't matter which one you pick. And also I have direct donation links through PayPal and Venmo. Any help is appreciated, but never expected, but there are always expenses in doing these shows in terms of equipment and research material, and then travel expenses as well. So, again, I'm planning on going to the Mid-Michigan Paracon this year, November 4th and 5th. And that's a weekend, Saturday and Sunday, at the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Looking forward to that, checking it out for the first time, and talking with everyone there, and just reporting back once I get home on the experience, and sharing any recordings I'm able to get while I'm there. So I think that covers everything for now. Again, I'm going to be reviewing Stephen King's The Stand. Now, this is probably going to be the most basic review of a book I have ever done, because for those that are not familiar with it, it is over 1,100 pages long, 1,100 pages long. It's a really long book. To some people that is great, others not so much. I'm in that first group. I loved it when I first read it years ago. And there are actually 2 versions of it. There was the original that came out, and then there was an unabridged, like a complete and uncut, I think is what they called it, version. That was the one that I read, which was the 1,100 page version. So I'm really just going to be giving a real basic overview of the plot of the book, and covering more of the concepts in it than the actual plot, because it's just such a huge story, and there are so many characters in it. It's really more the characters that make it a big story than the plot in a way. I could see maybe some other author maybe covering the same kind of a plot, but using less characters, and it still being an interesting story because of what happens sort of in the middle, towards the end and then the rest of the book. And just as far as the series of events go, and the themes, again, like I said, in this book. So there are spoilers, but because of this, the size of this book, I would say there are very few spoilers that you'll hear in this show. Yeah, I definitely recommend it to anyone that's interested in a good long read. But so this is a book that I'm going to be also talking mainly about the version that I read, which is the longer version. And this is, now it starts off with something that in a way is odd because it's sort of a pre-internet version of sort of real world events in a way, except on a much larger and more extreme scale. Basically, in this book, there is this laboratory out in the U.S. that is creating different things, and one of them is this virus that gets out and spreads around the world, and it ends up basically killing a lot of people. There's only a very small percentage of people that are immune to this virus that spreads around the world. And but what's happening in the story, as people are starting to notice what's happening and sort of governments are starting to collapse, more and more people are getting sick and then passing away. Again, just all the systems that we're used to in terms of government institutions, military, just everything, banks, is affected, and then eventually, of course, closed down. And to the point where, obviously, utilities start to shut down as well. And again, it's because this in this book, like I said, it's a more extreme version of what, even with whether you, no matter what side of everything you kind of fall on with these real world events over the last few years, this book is still more extreme than anything than has happened from what I've been able to tell, as far as what I've heard. So again, this in this story, only like less than 1% of the world's population, I believe it was, are immune to this virus, that they actually survive. So, but the ones that do survive start trying to find other people across the U.S. And this book really does just focus on the U.S. And as these people are trying to find other people and travel and reunite with people, just find people that are also like them, the other thing that kind of starts to bring them all together is they start having dreams of two different figures. And one is an older, actually quite old overall. I believe she's over 100 years old. This older woman that's in Nebraska, and people start having dreams of her. And they get this sense that she's basically a very kind and good person. And of course, these other dreams that they have are more like nightmares. And there's this sort of monstrous demon-like creature that appears to be human in most ways, that also appears in their nightmares. And people start sort of gathering and traveling across the country to where they feel like this older woman named Mother Abigail, and her name is Abigail, and she's sort of named Mother Abigail by a lot of the people that start to find her thanks to these dreams, which sort of lead them in the direction, give them a general sense of where she is. And this actually, as it's happening, she actually lives in Nebraska. But at one point, some of the people that have found her, when they all start getting together, they feel drawn towards Boulder, Colorado, and they go there. I don't remember if there was any other reason than just a feeling that they all had, that she had. And the people that have not quite joined up with her yet, even with that change in location, they still manage through these dreams to find her. And she's not really aware of these dreams of all these other people. So these are more like visions in a way. But these other nightmares, people start having these other nightmares, and it turns out that basically people are flocking towards one of these two people. Either this Abigail or Randall Flagg, who anyone who has read many of King's other books may recognize that name. He is basically a villain in the Dark Tower series, which I have reviewed before. Also, in another book that I will review at some point, The Eyes of the Dragon, which is more of a fantasy, almost like a medieval fantasy. So this is basically a nearly immortal creature that has popped up in several of King's books, either in minor or major roles. So, but people start gathering around these two figures and rebuilding miniature societies and dealing with sort of all of the positive and negative aspects of that kind of rebuilding, where they don't have all the it's sort of, they're figuring out everything out as they go. And again, they keep on having these nightmares and dreams of what's happening. People in what becomes known as the free zone, in this community that Abigail is sort of gathering around her, or some force is gathering around her. Again, she doesn't have these dreams herself. It's not like a two-way communication, as far as I remember, or as I could tell. They start gathering around these two people, and as things are sort of getting better and better around Abigail, Flagg, of course, rules his community through fear but also promises of power and wealth, and just basically sort of calling in all of the people in society that maybe felt like they were misfits, or sort of just anyone that basically he can get a mental hold on, in a way, through manipulation, again, fear, but also sort of praising and just sort of just really manipulating people into staying with him and working for him, and sort of this authoritarian version, more strict version of this society that he makes around himself. So there are so many characters in this story. It really is that the characters are really what drew me to the story more so than the original event, because I'm not really into post-apocalyptic stories as a rule, especially when they're more. Anytime they're super realistic in any way, I'm just not into that. But the characters were interesting enough to keep me going until sort of the paranormal stuff started happening. And again, this book, it starts off with dreams, but and these continue all throughout the book, and people have visions sort of what's going on over in Las Vegas, actually, which is where Flagg sets up his own society. And but what starts to happen is Flagg wants to destroy Abigail and her group, because again, they have this free zone, and it's basically, it's not fear-based. It's not. There's no control. There's no. He's not controlling it. So, and he basically is this sort of primal chaos, this force of chaos and destruction, evil, sort of just all these negative things. And so he starts to plan and have people figuring out how to operate technology, and including weapons. And And so there's this exchange of people that go back and forth. Some people that show up in this free zone that they don't feel welcome for various reasons. They don't feel like they belong there. They're also still having these dreams of Flag and his community, and he's sort of always calling out to people. But then there are people that are over in Flag's group, which start to realize things are not so great, and a few of them over time they leave, and some of them end up going to or past the free zone. So, but anyway, one of the things that happens is one of the people that Flag tries to manipulate and to control is really good at sort of finding technology and large power sources and weapons. And so this guy, he's sort of in his community nicknamed, given this sort of derogatory nickname of because he has mental illness, various levels of that, and so he's known as the Trash Can Man. If you look up that story, that book, there's a lot in there. But how the story ends up going is everything is starting to come to a head. Flag is making more and more plans to send planes with missiles over to this other colony where Abigail and all of her followers and just regular people are sort of gathering. And they've basically just managed to get power on again in this community so that they can have some comfort and also have some basically heat and running water and sort of things that you would want when you're in Colorado, where things can get kind of cold during a certain part of the year. And but I mean, they're not on a military base or near a military installation that they know of, and they're not looking for that kind of stuff. So if these planes and these missiles are sent out, it will basically destroy this free zone. And meanwhile, there's all these tensions starting in this free zone because of people sort of disagreeing on how things should go. Sort of trends in some people thinking there should be more strict rules, others thinking there shouldn't be such strict rules because, again, everyone has just survived this huge breakdown of civilization. And but in the end, the book the one that sort of stops Flag is this one of his own sort of followers that finds a weapon, basically a nuclear weapon, missile kind of device, explosive device, and brings it to Las Vegas. And it really is quite the ending. It's an amazing book in the way this whole connection between that everyone seems to have with dreams to these two forces, these two opposing forces, and even in some cases to each other, where they have dreams of each other either before or after they meet, and so they're traveling in the physical world, and also, it seems anyway, in a lot of cases, traveling in a sort of a dream, maybe even a spiritual world, and it's, again, I just really love the book. I'd recommend it to anyone who is interested in a very long read. But yeah, so there's a lot of characters in there. I'll just go over sort of maybe a couple of them. The two that are sort of highlighted in a lot of the covers of the book that I've seen are this one guy from Texas named Stuart Redman, who sort of was always just getting along in life, and he ends up becoming one of the main leaders of this free zone before he has to go out, and he and a small group go out to confront Flag, and things don't go so well for him in that regard. But I will leave the rest of that for you all to find out how that goes on your own. But he also, along the way, again with these people just start traveling towards the west part of the U.S., and they start forming little groups, and these little groups start getting together and making larger groups. But he ends up meeting this woman from Maine, Franny Goldsmith. This is her name, and now she and this other this guy around closer to her age, I think Stuart is maybe a few years older than her. He's already had a wife and everything that had passed before, but Franny is one of two survivors in the town that she's from in Maine, and this other guy is named Harold, and he is sort of has a crush on her, basically from before any of this even happened, and of course she starts to fall in love with Stuart, and so that leads to certain events in the book as well, with Harold sort of while being contacted by and manipulated by Flag, plotting against this this free zone, and of course both Stu and Fran, as they're called in the book and later on, they're both part of this free zone's ruling committee. So again, it's basically they get all the power, and he doesn't get much of anything, and so it's easier to manipulate him, sort of in the story as things are going. And of course, now with a lot of these visions, as Flag is contacting all these people and trying to manipulate them, he's also using them to spy on this free zone as well. So, but anyway, yeah, it's a really good book. Like I said a couple times now, sorry about that. But and it's really amazing because it does tie into this whole multiverse that Stephen King has made in a lot of his books. Again, Flag is not. This is not the first or last time he appears in many of King's, at least a few of Stephen King's books. It does seem like whenever he appears to die in a book, somehow he shows up again later in another book. So, and it's never really clear how that works, even to him, from what I've seen. But so he's sort of this, almost like a universal force of some kind. So, but I think that's going to do it for this episode. Again, if you're into Stephen King and you haven't read this book, I'd recommend it. Definitely go for the longer version. I think it's called Complete and Uncut or something like that. But I would definitely recommend that because it's just the longer version is just it's such an amazing story when everything is there. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all in the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care.